Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Leigh Fuge, and in this video today we're going to be talking about the Boss MD200 multi-modulation pedal. The MD200 has 12 different modulation effects built in, so it's pretty much all the modulation you'd ever need in one pedal. It's got stereo in and stereo out on the rear of the unit, and you can also control the parameters with an expression pedal. It's also got 2 foot switches, one to turn the unit on and off, and a dual purpose one here which deals with the memory, because this has got 4 user presets and a manual bank. And also if you hold that down, it goes into tap tempo mode. So when using things like rotary speakers or chorus effects, you can tap the timing of them to suit whatever you're playing. There's MIDI in and out on the side there as well via a MIDI TRS style cable, and there's also a USB port for updating the firmware. In this video, I'm not going to be doing any MIDI stuff. I'm just going to be running this straight in mono, straight into the Blackstar Studio 10 6L6 that you see behind me there, which is mic'd up with a Lewitt Audio LCT 440. So on the top of the unit, we've got a bunch of different controls. It looks a lot more complicated than it really is. We've got a 12 position switch here, which controls which type of modulation you've selected. We've got a rate, depth, and effect level. So the rate controls the speed of the modulation. So if you're using time-based modulation like Tremolo, you can actually use this to increase or decrease the speed. The depth is sort of the intensity of the effect, and the effect level is the loudness of the effect. Each effect has 3 unique parameters. So on the top panel, it's just labeled parameters 1, 2, and 3. We'll get into what each of those do as we go through the effects. There's a memory button here which banks through the 4 different memories and the manual mode. And you've also got a tap division button here for selecting the rhythmic subdivision that the tap tempo applies to. So you've got whole notes, half notes, quarter notes, eighth notes, and triplets. The rate also doubles as a push button, which changes what you see on the display. So you can change between a bunch of different things like tempo and the rate frequency and what bank is selected, a bunch of different things. I'm just going to leave that as it is for the sake of simplicity though. So let's get this thing plugged in and get some tones from it. So we'll start off with the chorus. So I've got the effect selector up at chorus. The rate is going to control the speed of the chorus, the depth is going to control the intensity, and the level is obviously going to control the level. Then we've got the 3 parameters. Parameter 1 is for what Boss calls sweetness, which is basically higher values that create a more enveloping sound. Parameter 2 is low cut, so this is the tonal character of the low frequency. And parameter 3 is a high cut filter. What we can also do is we can double the rate switch here, which is a push button. If I hold that down and then I move that parameter, it tells me on the screen what I'm moving. So I'm moving number 3 now. We should see high cut, low cut, and sweetness. It's a little bit fiddly to do at first, but you get used to it. If you need to sort of see what parameters you're adjusting, hold that rate button down as you move the knob. So I've just got everything set straight up the middle for now. So I've got the level and the depth up the middle, all the parameters up the middle. The rate, I believe this is 60 beats per minute and a frequency of 1. So we'll just leave it at that for now, and then we'll tweak it as we go along. The guitar you're going to be hearing is my Shergold Provocateur. I've actually got this in the middle position, so I've got both pickups on, but I've got the bridge pickup split to a single coil sound. So here is the chorus sound of the Boss MD200. So I'm going to push the rate up now. Let's go up to about 150. It's a little bit fiddly at first. You get used to setting it though. I'm going to put a bit more depth in this and a bit more level. So it gets into a bit more of a wobbly chorus there. So that's not really the type of chorus I like. I like a little bit more of a subtle chorus. Maybe beats per minute mode would be easier to tweak. So I can take that down to 45. Let's play with the parameters as well. So I'm going to push the sweetness all the way up. So as you saw there with the low and high cut parameters, when the low cut is all the way down, it actually says flat on the screen. And likewise, when the high cut is all the way up, That says flat on the screen. But as you heard when I swept the controls, it was cutting the low end and cutting the high end accordingly. The sweetness adds a nice sort of chiminess to it. I really like that chorus sound with a lower rate, as you just heard there. That's a bit more of a subtle kind of 80s chorus. I think that's my preferred use of the chorus effect. Not that I use chorus too much, but if I was going to, that would be the way I would use it. So the second effect is the CE1 mode. This is the classic Boss CE1 chorus. So once again, the rate, depth, and effect level do the same thing. So I'm going to put those back flat for the time being. The parameters, we've got the first parameter, which is the type. So this changes between a vibrato and a chorus, much like the CE1 did. Parameter 2 is the low level. So this is the tonal character of the low frequency, similar to a low cut. And then the third parameter is the high level, which is just the tonal character of the high frequency. So we can tune the lows and the highs of this as well. So let's leave it on chorus mode for now. So as I was playing that, I flipped between chorus and vibrato mode. A lot of fun sounds with the vibrato. It's a little bit over the top for my taste, but again, I like the more subtle chorus sounds. Not an effect I would use that much personally, but it's great if you want that classic CE1 vibe. I can't vouch for the authenticity of the tone because I don't have a CE1 to hand to compare it to, but I imagine if it's Boss, they've pretty much used the same idea there, so it should be pretty close for all those CE1 fans out there. So I'm just going to reset all the dials now, and then we'll take a look at the next effect, which is going to be the Flanger. So that sounds like a pretty typical flanger to me. So the parameters, we've got resonance on the first parameter, which is the amount of feedback. The second one is manual, which is the center frequency that the effect is applied. So you can obviously adjust the sweep of the effect. And then the third one is the low cut. So I'll play again for a bit and I'll move some of those controls. plenty of crazy flanger style effects in there. Again, for me, flanger's not an effect I use that much, but if I was going to, I'd use it in some of the subtler settings. Some of the additional parameters there can get a bit crazy, especially that resonance control. It almost sounds like a, you know, police siren when you've got that thing on full, so it's pretty fun if you want to get a bit wacky with some of the sounds you're creating. So next on the list, we've got phaser. So this is obviously a classic Boss style phaser, so let's set everything back to the middle and then we'll take a look. The controls we've got here now, we've got the parameters of resonance, which is obviously the feedback resonance again. We've got the manual control again, which is the center frequency for the phaser, and a low cut. So pretty much the parameters do the same sort of thing they do for the flanger. So that gives you everything you'd expect from a phaser, from subtle phasing to some pretty crazy sounds there. There's a lot of tweakability in that, which is quite fun. I'm not sure exactly what phaser that's based off, but I'm guessing it's just the standard Boss one, because if we go to the next one, which is vintage phaser, this is actually based off the classic 1970s MXR Phase 90. So let me just reset the rate here and the effect level back to midnight. So the parameters change up a little bit here. So the first parameter is the type. So we've got two different ones. We've got THR, which stands for through. That means you're just hearing the phaser sound. If I turn this way, we get CRH. This is like an added distortion. So you get the classic phaser sound with a crunch effect applied. The second parameter is the amount of drive. So the second parameter only works when this knob here is set to the crunch mode. That then applies a certain amount of gain to that. And then the tone is also the crunch tone. So really this is based off the simplicity of the original Phase 90, where the only thing we can do is turn the gain on and off. And the third parameter then controls the tone. So this is the tone of the crunch. So the parameters on this mode only affect the sound when the crunch is on. So when you've got just the phaser on its through mode, doesn't do anything. The only thing you can change there is the rate, the depth, and the level of the effect. As soon as you engage the crunch, that becomes gain and that becomes tone. So that's quite a lot of fun. There's actually a surprising amount of gain in that, actually. I wasn't expecting there to be that much gain built in. So that is kind of your classic MXR Phase 90 from the 70s, but with the crunch of a driven amp as well. So if you really want to dial in some of those kind of Van Halen 1 kind of tones, where you've got that big roaring stack sound with the drive and then the phaser going in the front, that's a pretty good start on that. Even with a clean amp, like I'm running this completely clean, as you'll hear if I turn the pedal off. That's super, super clean. With that drive on, it actually adds enough drive to kind of be considered a distorted lead tone. Alright, so next up we've got the classic Vibe. Now this is one of my favorites. This is based on the Univibe. So this one's got a really cool additional parameter, because in that first position we've got the through, which is just the dry sort of Univibe sound, and then we've got fuzz. So this is adding fuzz to the signal as well. So if you want to get into those Hendrix kind of sounds, this is going to be a lot of fun. Much like the previous effect, parameters 2 and 3 are only active when the fuzz is engaged. Number 2 controls the amount of fuzz, so the gain of the fuzz, and number 3 is the tone of the fuzz. So we'll start with the fuzz off, and then we'll add it in. So some really cool fuzzed up Univibe style sounds there. The next thing we've got is the vibrato mode. So let's just reset the pedal once again. In the vibrato mode, the first parameter controls the tone, which is obviously the overall tone of the effect. The second parameter is called the direct effect balance. So this is like a wet dry control. And then the third controls the tone again. So this is the overall tonal character. So the first one is the higher values to provide, or to produce, sorry, according to the manual, to produce more complex modulation. And then the final tone, so we've got two tone controls, is the overall tonal character. So we'll figure that out as we go along. So let's start with the vibrato. Everything you'd expect there from a vibrato effect. Next up, we've got Tremolo. So this is a pretty fun one. First additional parameter in Tremolo mode selects between the type of tremolo. So we've got two here on offer. We've got TRN, which is just your standard volume-based tremolo that makes the volume go up and down. And we've also got pan, which is a stereo tremolo, which pans between the two different amps. So I've only got this running in mono today, so we're not really going to get the benefit of the pan, but if you were running a stereo setup, it would pan the tremolo effect between two different amps or two different speakers. The second parameter controls the waveform, so we don't actually have a set type of waveform here, just a number system, so obviously you're going to have to use your ears to determine what's going on there. And then the third one is the tone, which is the overall tone of the effect. So let's set everything straight up. We'll get that on normal tremolo mode. Let's see how this sounds. Before we start on the tremolo, I'm also going to engage the tap tempo mode. So when this light is off, it's in memory mode, so it banks between the different memories. If I want to put that into tap mode, I hold that switch down, and then this light starts pulsating in time with the tempo that's set. So as I was playing with the tremolo there, I was also pressing the tap division button and the tap tempo switch just in random intervals as well. Obviously, when we use the tap division, we have the 4 different subdivisions, like I said, whole, half, quarter, and eighths, and we also have triplet versions of each one. So if the quarter note is selected and then I press this, it automatically engages the triplet version. Then I go to eighth note triplets, whole note triplets, half note triplets. So there's 8 different options there altogether. I was just doing that random just to get different fields, and I was using the tap tempo switch to change that as well. This is really useful when you've got the BPM here, so you could obviously tap this to the song you're playing with the BPM showing, or you can have the frequency showing, which isn't showing. There we go. So the frequency is 2.7, if that means anything, and then 162 beats per minute. It's pretty useful to know if you're trying to tap along with the song. So next up, we've got Rotary. So this is a really fun effect. This is sort of simulating a Leigh rotary speaker. So in the rotary mode, the first parameter controls the slow rotation speed, and the second parameter controls the fast rotation speed. The third one adjusts the overall tonal characteristics. So we've got slow speed and fast speed, and that's really interesting because the depth control in this controls the amount of gain or the preamp distortion that goes into the speaker, and then the rate just cycles between fast and slow. So we've got two distinctive speeds here. Gain, so that's the amount of preamp distortion we've got. This is the slow speed, sorry, that's the fast speed. And then we've just got the tone. There's two different modes we can cycle between here. Like a lot of Leslie style pedals, they have a fast and a slow one that sort of ramp up and down. The only downside is you can't bank between them on the fly with a foot switch unless you're using an expression pedal. You could assign that parameter to an expression pedal. Also, if you had a MIDI controller, this can be expanded to 128 banks instead of 4. So if you had MIDI, you could set up a fast and a slow patch. The only way to do that with this would be to use two of your user sort of selectable slots and have a fast and a slow one there as well. So we'll set everything straight up to midnight. We'll start off pretty slow and then we'll just move everything as we go along. Okay, so I was actually wrong about the functionality of that. You can actually bank between the fast and slow with the tap tempo foot switch. I automatically assumed the tap tempo foot switch would control the speed here that's assigned to parameters 1 and 2, because obviously parameter 1 is the slow speed setting and 2 is the fast speed setting. I assumed the tap switch would control those parameters, but actually it doesn't. If you press the tap switch, it banks between the fast and slow. So you can actually completely disregard everything I said about not being able to do that, because you can do it. So that's a really great Rotary sound. I love that you can add the extra preamp drive there if you want to put some distorted Leslie kind of sounds. If you run the depth on 0, it's just a completely clean sound. Next up, we've got the auto wah mode. So we'll set this to auto wah. Now this is sort of like a wah pedal that you'd use on the floor that you operate manually, but the pedal will do all that for you based on the dynamics. So the parameters for this is the first parameter controls the resonance. So this is the depth of the wah effect and how intense that is, and also the center frequency, which we set with this knob. So the center frequency is the sort of the peak of the wah. So this controls the intensity at the peak of this frequency that you set with the second parameter. And then the third parameter is the filter type. So you've got LPF, which is a low pass filter, so only the low pass or the low frequency region is passed. The HPF mode is high pass, so the same thing but with high frequencies. And then we've got band pass, and that's a very specific frequency. So there's a couple of different filter types there for the wah as well. So let's just start off with everything straight up at 12 o'clock. We'll start with high pass filter mode as well, just because that's straight upwards, and then we'll have a play. So the auto wah takes a little bit of getting used to with the settings there. It's quite extreme and it's quite harsh. I think you could probably dial it in to be quite a convincing wah, but really I would use that more as an auto filter effect. If I wanted something a bit weird and a bit wacky, I probably wouldn't use that as a sort of replacement for a conventional wah. It's a little bit too spiky and a little bit too unpredictable. I suppose you'd have to tap tempo it to every single thing you do, and that's not really the way you'd use wah. You use wah more as an expressive effect, and you move the pedal in time with what you're playing and where you want to sort of accentuate different notes. An auto wah can't really do that for you. It can only move the sort of the frequency band in line with what you tell the pedal to do rather than you physically manipulating it. It still sounds pretty cool. I think there's a lot of fun to be had with that. Next up, we've got the slicer. So this is a crazy effect. The slicer is kind of like a tremolo in that it adjusts the volume of what you're hearing, but it does it in a weird rhythmic way. So we can put all these different rhythmic patterns into this. It almost kind of gets a bit synthy as well. So let's have some fun with this one. So the depth knob does something different here. In the slicer mode, it controls the balance between the effect sound and the direct sound. So obviously what we're playing versus what we're slicing. So we can have fully sliced or fully dry or somewhere in the middle. And we've got three parameters here. We've got the first one is the pattern. So obviously, as you can see, there is a ton of different patterns. We've got P and H. There are, what is that there? There's 30 different with the P in front of it and 20 with the H. I'm not sure what the P and the H stand for, but we'll find out. The second parameter is the attack. So this is the attack volume of the slicer. And the third parameter is called duty, which is the length of the sound for the slice pattern. So we'll set everything at midnight and we'll just see what happens. So if you want to have some fun with some real weird rhythmic stuff there, the slicer's pretty cool for that. You can dial in all sorts of weird stuff there. The H mode on the parameter there, where that preset goes to H, that almost seems like it's a bit of an arpeggiator and a bit random. It sort of adds a couple of things that I wasn't playing. And then in the P mode, whatever that is, that seems to be just a bit more of a generic slicer. So plenty of cool stuff there. The difference between dialing it between fully wet and sort of blending it with the dry signal, that's pretty cool as well. I think there's definitely a bunch of creative stuff there. It's probably not an effect I'm going to get much use out of myself, but it's a lot of fun. Final one is called the Overtone. Now this one, I would kind of describe it as a cross between sort of an octaver and something that makes your guitar sound a little bit like a Hammond organ. So we'll set everything straight up here. We've got 3 parameters. We've got the lower level on parameter 1, which is the overtone 1 octave below. Parameter 2 is the unison level, so this is the volume of your dry signal. And then there's also like a slightly pitch shifted sound added to this as well. And then there's the upper level, which is the octave up. So let's get everything straight up the middle. So everything there from weird kind of upper and lower octaves to pretty much full-on organ sounds. The tap tempo switch seems to add this weird modulation type thing. I don't really know exactly what it's doing, but it sounds pretty cool. If you were sort of bringing in some Hammond organ type sounds but you didn't have a keyboard player, that would be a really cool effect to use for that. It's pretty cool because it kind of simulates a keyboard there. It's not exactly the same, but in a live mix, I really don't think you'd notice much difference. I think you'd probably be easily fooled into thinking that was an organ there. So there you go, guys. That is the Boss MD200 multi-modulation. That was a bit of a mammoth walkthrough of what this thing can do. It does a lot. There's so many different effects in this. There's 12 different modulation types, and each one with its parameters and its sort of additional options, it takes it way beyond 12 anyway. There's so many different sounds you can get from this thing. I think it's pretty much the only modulation effect you're ever going to need on your board. If you pair this with a MIDI foot switch, you can expand the 4 banks on the unit to a maximum of 128, which is pretty cool. Obviously that gives you a lot more options as well. If you could fill 128 banks with different sounds and not ever duplicate the same sound, because this thing does so many different things. I love this thing, and I'm really looking forward to getting this on my pedal board and dialed in and seeing how many different crazy things I can do with it. I'm not a huge modulation fan personally, but what really spoke to me with this pedal was the fact that it's got like a tremolo, a vibrato, a sort of a univibe type thing, and a rotary speaker all in one, along with the organ sound. Because currently on my sort of main pedal board, I have a couple of different pedals that do those functions, and this would just save me a lot of space. I'm condensing it all down to one unit. I don't have to worry about 6 different pedals being turned on and off. I can access everything through one single unit, and that makes my life a lot easier. And if I was looking to run something in stereo, I've got that extra functionality as well. And also if I ever look to integrate MIDI, I've got that functionality. So yeah, it's definitely something worth considering if you want to scale down the amount of modulation effects you're carrying around. These things retail at sort of like the low end of the £200 mark as well, so they're incredibly affordable. It's a lot of pedal for not a lot of money. So yeah, go check out the 200 series from Boss, the MD200. It's fantastic. I love it, and I'm going to get a lot more use from this thing. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you did, please let me know down below in the comments what you thought of this pedal, and also let me know what your favorite modulation effect is. Do you think there's anything Boss have missed from this? Is there any modulation effects you might have liked to see included, or anything that you think that you heard in this demo that you just didn't like the sound of? I'm always interested in hearing what you guys think of the products as well. And if you guys did enjoy this video, please scroll down, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and leave a comment, because you guys getting involved really helps me to keep growing this channel and working with companies like Boss creating these kind of videos. And hopefully you guys are enjoying these videos and having a lot of fun watching them, because I'm having a lot of fun making them. So it's always good to talk to you guys in the comments. Scroll down, let me know what you think, and I will speak to you guys very, very soon. Thanks for watching. See you soon.